Hey guys, what's going on? Jeb here, and in today's video, we're going to be discussing a concept which I've never really talked about here on the channel. It's the idea of the altcoin engine. If you guys are familiar with Bitcoin dominance over here on CoinMarketCap, you may know that Bitcoin and the altcoins tend to exchange their dominance. Sometimes Bitcoin's very dominant, and sometimes the altcoins are very dominant. In today's video, I want to talk about how important that is to the foundation of a bull market, and why this is a trend that you should be looking at. Guys, this probably isn't going to end up being a very long video, but it's something I don't see people talking about on YouTube, and I think it's going to be very important for our technical analysis coming up over the next year or so. So if you guys do enjoy today's video, make sure you smash that like button. Really helps out the channel with the YouTube algorithm. And also make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell while you're down there so you'll be updated every single time another coffee-fueled rant comes online. Anyway, guys, without much further ado, let's go ahead and dive right on into it. I would do a little bit of short-term technical analysis, and I'll show you why we're not going to. Nothing has changed in the last 24 hours. Bitcoin is quite boring right now, which is one of the reasons why I want to talk about some more fundamental technical analysis, some more longer term stuff, some things that aren't necessarily going to show up on the charts. And one of those things has to do with the Bitcoin market dominance. On CoinMarketCap, if you scroll to the top, of course, you're going to find this Bitcoin dominance value. And I would argue with whether or not this is the actual dominance, because if you go to the real CoinMarketCap, a lot of these market capitalization figures are based off of a circulating supply that isn't necessarily right. And also it doesn't take into account how much the cryptocurrencies are being used. You can actually find something called a volume weighted market dominance, which is a lot better indicator of what we're looking at here, but this will do for the sake of this video. I want to ask you guys a question. What happens when Bitcoin crashes? What happens when Bitcoin trades sideways or moves to the downside? What happens when Bitcoin goes into a downtrend, a bear market, when people lose interest in Bitcoin? Well, that's exactly what happens, guys. People lose interest in Bitcoin and people leave the market, and when people leave the market, they take their money with them, and when people take their money with them, all of a sudden the valuation of Bitcoin goes down, the valuation of Bitcoin goes down, and therefore the amount of money that you can make by longing the market or investing in the market also goes down. It's kind of a snowball effect. That's why Bitcoin can snowball uphill and then just as easily snowball downhill depending on which direction the market is moving. And that explains why sideways trading in Bitcoin is really a big decision point, but that's getting off topic. The point here is that when Bitcoin trends to the downside, people lose interest in Bitcoin, and people losing interest in Bitcoin is a very bad thing for Bitcoin if you want Bitcoin to go up. And that brings us to the point of today's video, which is what I like to call the altcoin engine. You guys have never really heard me talk about this on the channel, but it's something I want to talk about a little bit more as we move further on into this bull market. Remember, guys, this channel has existed since the very end of the last bull market, so it hasn't really existed very much during a roaring bull market yet. But as the Bitcoin bull market starts to come back over the next 6 to 12 months, especially coming up towards the halving, I think this is something that's going to be very important. So let's define our terms here, guys. I talked about this in a previous video, but I'll go ahead and say it again. Think about the way an internal combustion engine works. You have a piston, it goes up, it compresses the gas as the gases combust with a spark, and then when they combust, it pushes the piston down, and then the displacement opens up, and that's when more gases, more fuel come into the engine, and then the piston comes back up, and the same thing repeats itself in a two-stroke engine. It's a four-stroke engine. It does it twice before one cycle is complete. Point is, it goes up and it goes down. Similar thing happens in Bitcoin, and I'll show you here on the dominance chart. When Bitcoin is rallying, of course, the altcoins go down. So in a four-stroke engine, for example, the first and second stroke, Bitcoin is rallying, and then guess what happens after that, guys? In the third and fourth stroke, to finish the cycle, Bitcoin starts falling off, as it did here from about February of 2017 all the way down to about June of 2017, and the altcoins rallying. The reason that's important, guys, is because the bane of a Bitcoin bull market is when Bitcoin is crashing and there's nothing happening in the altcoin spaces. If that happens, the market gets boring and the market kind of dies for a little while. That's what happened when the market traded sideways back here in 2015 and 16, is that Bitcoin was rallying, but the altcoins weren't doing anything, so there was nowhere for all of that interest to go that was in Bitcoin. When Bitcoin was having a pullback, okay, that's just it. Everybody's going to leave, so it takes a lot longer. The reason the market started going parabolic, one of many reasons, is because when there was a pullback, there was place to put the rest of the interest in the space. We could be looking at all of the Ponzi schemes in the cryptocurrency space back in 2017. Everybody was looking at mining and lending platforms like BitConnect and Hashflare and Genesis Mining and all of these different platforms. And even if they weren't looking at one of those during a pullback, they were looking at news from China, with China banning Bitcoin for the 17th time that month. They were looking at the fundamentals. They were looking at ICOs. To make my point, when Bitcoin was going into a pullback back in 2017, there was another place for the interest to go. We were much more able to weather the storm of Bitcoin being boring back then because there was other stuff to focus on. And that's why I mentioned the altcoin engine, because it's really important in the cryptocurrency space that we don't lose interest. Guys, Bitcoin is still, at this point, really a speculative investment. I think a lot of the valuation in Bitcoin is not actually coming from its use case, it's coming from speculation. And because of that, if there's not a lot of interest in the space, Bitcoin's going to trade sideways, and eventually sideways trading with no interest is going to lead to a fall, as we've seen in the last couple of weeks. But here's where it gets interesting, interesting, guys, because if we look at the Bitcoin dominance, what we've seen happen here is over the last several days, about the last week or so, Bitcoin's dominance has actually been trending downwards from a peak up here around 70.5%, actually around 71% if we zoom in here to the 3-month chart, down to where it is now around 66%. What that means is that the altcoins are getting a lot of their dominance back, and if that trend continues, then the altcoins might start popping off like popcorn kernels, as they tend to do when Bitcoin bull markets are starting. We saw this happen in 2017. A lot of these altcoins were just going to the moon. If we see even something similar to that happen, then there's going to be a place for the interest in Bitcoin to go. Instead of people leaving the space when Bitcoin has a pullback or trades sideways, people will instead start moving to the altcoins. If people start getting excited about things in this space other than just Bitcoin, then that is the recipe for a bull market in Bitcoin. To make a long story excruciatingly short, guys, my point here is that when Bitcoin goes into a pullback, when Bitcoin is being boring, as it has been for the last couple of months, there needs to be a place for people to go and be stimulated mentally because they're bored of Bitcoin. Whether that's the altcoins, whether that's ICOs, whether that's other like lending platforms that come up. Hopefully it's something beneficial. Hopefully it's something productive. Hopefully it's something that actually furthers the cryptocurrency space rather than retracting from it like BitConnect was back in January of 2018 when it collapsed. But whatever it is, it's probably going to be bullish for Bitcoin if it's something that people can focus on that is still within the cryptocurrency space during a pullback. Because if people lose interest in Bitcoin and there's nothing for them to refocus that interest onto in the cryptocurrency space, they're going to look elsewhere. They're going to get bored. Tell me if I'm wrong on that. I think you'll find that I'm right. So it is for that reason that I really want Bitcoin to do well, but I also want the altcoins to do well. Even though a lot of these altcoins are trash, to be quite honest, most of the market capitalization that's not in Bitcoin is in fact in the top 10, and most of the top 10 are good projects. I want to see more interest going into these altcoins so that people have something to focus on and so that they can weather the storm when Bitcoin is being boring. We want to see more volatility. We don't want to see 1% and 2% movement in all of these altcoins. We want to see what we saw in 2017 where the altcoins were moving 10 or 20% in both directions either day. Remember when I used to do the crypto market recap at the beginning of every video? That was like a year ago. We'd come in here and we'd sort by change and we'd see Centrality, Siacoin, Ren, MCO, Holo, Cyberterium, all of these cryptocurrencies up over 10% and then the biggest losers. That used to be a bigger deal because the altcoins used to move more. So that's what I want to see. Tell me in the comment section down below what you guys think of that analysis, because I think at the end of the day, the thing that really drives Bitcoin is not even technicals, although the technicals are ridiculously important, and it's not only fundamentals, although the fundamentals are also ridiculously important. I think the two things that are the most important to Bitcoin are its long-term technicals. The long-term technicals are looking pretty bullish on Bitcoin, and also the interest in the space, guys, because Bitcoin is a speculative investment. Because we're not investing in generic steel company incorporated, we don't have a whole lot of use case for Bitcoin that is actually driving the price. Bitcoin is slowly being adopted. A lot of the valuation is coming from speculation, so we need to make sure we retain that interest. When interest is high, as you see on Google Trends, so too is the price of Bitcoin. Drive interest to a speculation, and you will drive the price to the moon. So guys, keep that in mind when Bitcoin is collapsing. It's not collapsing because there's anything wrong with Bitcoin. It's not crashing because there's anything wrong with the fundamentals or the technicals. It's crashing. Well, I mean, the technicals and the fundamentals are going to play a role, but that's not the only thing. Remember that the interest in the space is a big part of it. When Bitcoin trades sideways for 4 months, that's almost always going to be a recipe for a crash, which is what we saw a little over a week ago. So guys, tell me what you think about that in the comment section down below. I don't see a lot of people talking about the actual interest in the space, and I think it's a really important part of our analysis that I'm also guilty of leaving out most of the time. I want to talk about it more. I want to talk about the actual interest in the space some more. So tell me in the comment section down below what you thought of that analysis. Guys, I am also going to briefly mention here in the outro that there is the coupon code for the Cryptocurrency Technical Analysis Academy down below. If you'd like to talk to some Discord server members about that, feel free to join our Discord server and you can get their testimony on what that is like. I'll talk about that more in tomorrow's video, but I wanted to go ahead and focus on this for today. Anyway, guys, speaking of today, that's pretty much going to do it for today's video. I do want to thank each and every single last one of you for watching as always, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace. Oh, I got a real good feeling.